What's up, y'all? It's Cool Steve, and yes, usually I'm at you with another YouTube short, but nope, not this time. This time I'm coming at you with the whole video. Now, as the title states, we're here to break down the 2025-2026 NBA season. The season is upon us. It starts Tuesday, October 21st, with a doubleheader on NBC, which, side note, it will be on NBC the first time in, 24 years, something like that, since 2002. So, yeah, 23. And so that's an exciting change for the NBA. Also, it's going to be on Peacock. NBA is going to be on Amazon. It's going to be on ESPN and ABC like it's always been. And so it's going to be a new change for the NBA. It goes from 190-something televised games, I think, last year to a little bit over 240 this year. So that is a huge change for the league. So with that being said, I really hope you guys have your streaming services set up on ESPN, on Peacock or Amazon or what have you, because there's going to be a lot more games that's going to be seen and broadcast coming to you this year. Now, unfortunately, for the first time since 1989, the NBA is not going to have the NBA on TNT, which has been broadcast for the last, 36 years now. But Ernie and the guys, Ernie, Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny, the Inside the NBA will now be on ESPN instead of TNT. We're going to see how that whole thing goes. They're not going to be broadcasting as much on ESPN from the schedules that have come out on social media. I'm sure you guys have seen. Not too excited about that, but that's kind of one of those things. It is what it is. I mean, I guess some of them is better than none of them. Now, with that being said, let's roll into the previews of these conferences. And we'll go ahead and start in the perceived weaker of the two conferences, that being the Eastern Conference. Now, guys, automatically, when we think of the Eastern Conference and you look at a lot of the major injuries that happened to key players last year, it happened typically in the postseason, and it happened with Eastern Conference teams. We had the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton going down, obviously with the Achilles. Jason Tatum went down the Knicks series, also with the Achilles. Damian Lillard went down, also with the Achilles. I've made videos, little shorts on in the past about, I don't know where these Achilles injuries are coming from. I don't know if it's the shoes they're wearing, the equipment, the training, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it's an epidemic that needs to be solved in the NBA. But regardless, these are the injuries that are happening that have really affected the Eastern Conference race heading into this season. There's two teams that really separate themselves from the pack, and I think we all know who they are, but I'm going to go ahead and preview them anyway because that's what we're here for. All right, so we're going to break this thing down division by division, and then I'll have an overview of what I think of the conference as a whole and who are going to be the playoff teams. Let's go ahead and start with the Atlantic Division. And, you know, when I think of this Atlantic Division, I think this one's a pretty clear-cut winner. I think the New York Knicks are going to run away with this division. You know, you look at them, they have the same starting five from last year. You look at Brunson and Hart and Anunoby, Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns. They do have the new head coach with Mike Brown, but Mike Brown is a proven head coach at several different places. And of course, he was the assistant in Golden State. He led the Cavs to 60-win teams. A couple of those, and then obviously with Sacramento, he was coach of the year as well. So he has a proven track record of being successful, at least in the regular season. He hasn't really had postseason success yet as a head coach. He'll be looking to do that with the New York Knicks. But I'm going to favor, and you'll notice this in my predictions, you'll notice that I favor teams that return their starting five. That's going to be key in this NBA season, the continuity that they have with all the changes that's happening everywhere else. Sorry for me, guys. I had to turn on a couple extra lights here. All right, so anyway, I have the Knicks at 1. I think Boston will be the 2 seed. I think they'll surprise some people with how well they do this year. But that seeding that they had a couple years before, where they won the championship, and then last year they won 60-plus games. Obviously, Jason Tatum to me is their best player, and so without him, that's going to be a huge loss. He's going to miss at least most of the regular season. He intends on trying to come back for the playoffs. We'll have to see how that goes, but I do think the Celtics will make it that far. But they lost a lot ahead, including him as well. They lost Drew Holiday, Robert Williams. They're gone to Portland. You know, Kristaps Porzingis is in Atlanta. Al Horford's in Golden State. They just lost a lot of pieces, especially in that front court, and I think that's going to hurt them early on. But Jaylen Brown is going to be enough to lead them to a playoff spot, plus some of those key role players they had. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this next team in my overview of the Eastern Conference, but I got Philly at number 3, and then I'll round it out with the Raptors at number 4, and then the Nets bring up the rear at number 5 in the Atlantic Division. That's how I got that rolling. All right, so now we roll on to the Central Division, and I have the team that was the best team in the East last year record-wise, and I think we'll repeat that again this year, and that being the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, another team like the Knicks, return the same starting 5. They've had gradual success in the last couple of years. This is the year that, along with the Knicks, they're expected to take that leap, and I think they will. Again, continuity with the lineups. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, who's a breakout star last year. That third spot, we'll kind of see who that is because Okoro's gone. He's now with the Bulls. So it's probably going to be like Max Strus, also Dean Wade, guys like that. And then, of course, Jared Allen at the 5. But that is a formidable starting 5. Now, as I look at the rest of this division, I'm going to say Detroit brings up number 2. I like the Bucks at a slight number 3. Obviously, they have the best player in the division, in Giannis, of course. And they added Miles Turner from the Pacers. I'm not that inspired by the rest of this team. I just think they have a lot of role players. And so I think they'll be good enough to make the playoffs. I don't know how much they can do once they get there. And then 4, just Indiana. Obviously, they were the Eastern Conference champs last year, but with not only Tyrese Halliburton gone, but then you lose Miles Turner to a division rival at that. That's just going to be a lot for them to overcome. I do see them fighting for a playoff spot. So they wouldn't surprise me if they get in. I just don't know how much noise they can make once they get in because Tyrese isn't coming back from that Achilles injury. And then I got the Bulls at number 5. To me, that's a team in purgatory. That's a team that kind of needs to break it up, but they're kind of one of those teams. They're not terrible. They're not great. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just kind of there. And last but not least, we have the Southeast Division, one that's probably the easiest to predict and probably the weakest of the 3 divisions in the East. It's going to be the Orlando Magic. A lot of people like them as a surprise team, so much so that they're probably not even a surprise team anymore. The addition of Desmond Bane from the Grizzlies, that's going to be huge for them. It adds another 20-point scorer, another defender to their squad. And, of course, they have a pretty decent bench, but that starting 5 is going to be formidable. And then Paolo Banchero, I mean, you talk about a breakout. That guy's going to be MVP candidate for sure this year. So I got the Magic at 1. I like Atlanta at 2. A lot of people do like Atlanta as well. I like their 2, 3, and 4 lineup to go with Trae Young. And they're going to have to make some moves this year because if they don't, I don't know how much longer Trae Young's going to be in Atlanta. That's just kind of the case there. And then 3, I think the Heat will be enough to at least contend for a playoff spot. Tyler Hero's hurt to start the year, and we'll see how he rebounds and how quickly he comes back. You know, they got him and Bam Adebayo, and they have that Heat culture thing going on with a lot of guys that like to play hard and things like that. But I just don't think they have a ton of talent to really compete in the East. But they'll fight for a playoff spot. And then 4, I'll say the Hornets. I actually like their starting 5. It's a little young, but I actually like it. It's just going to be the bench for the Hornets, really more so. That and health, of course. LaMelo hasn't really been that healthy lately. Brandon Miller, he's missed some time, so that's probably going to hurt the Hornets more so than anything. But they could compete for one of those play-in spots. I can see that. Don't see much more than that. And the Wizards probably going to be the worst team in the East, either them or the Nets, to me. So in conclusion, with the Eastern Conference, to wrap it up, if you ask me who my 2 top seeds are, pretty easy. Cleveland 1, New York 2. I think most people agree with that. As far as my other 6, in no particular order, because I really ain't that good at that type of stuff, but I would say Orlando, I would put Atlanta in there, I'll put Boston in there. I like Philadelphia in there as well. Let's see. Milwaukee, I think, will sneak in. They'll probably be one of the bottom seeds, but I think they can sneak in and get that. And then last spot, I am actually going to say the Toronto Raptors, surprisingly enough. I got them finishing 4th in the Atlantic, but if you look at their lineup, I actually like their lineup. So I would say the Raptors get that. And then as far as the play-in seeds, you're looking at some combination. I think the Pacers can at least get that. And let's see, probably the Heat. I can see the Heat just kind of sneaking in and getting one of those last spots. Again, they're one of those pesky teams. they're never going to be completely out of it, but I don't see them contending. So those would be my 10 playoff teams out of the Eastern Conference, and that'll be that. Also, let me add, if I had to choose one wild card that people don't see winning the East, but I see winning the East, potentially. Now, this is health permitting. Obviously, all of this is health permitting because that's what predictions are for. That's how the prediction game kind of goes. But I like the Philadelphia 76ers to be that. Now, again, obviously with Paul George, he's already going to miss the beginning of the season. You got Joel Embiid. He's got his health problems as well, as we all know. But if you got those three guys, you got VJ Edgecombe, their top draft pick. You got guys like Jared McCain. They have a pretty deep bench. Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond. If they're right in this Eastern Conference, they could win the conference. They could be a top 3 seed. They could be one of the bottom seeds, or I could see them missing the playoffs entirely. It's way too hard to call it with the Sixers, but that's what I see as my wild card for the East. All right, now it's on to the Western Conference, the harder of the two conferences to predict, and also the better conference of the two, as we all know. Now, of course, as we all know, staying at the top of the NBA mountain are the defending champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the youngest, if not the youngest team to win the championship, 68-win team that's bringing everybody back for a repeat run. So that's what's at the top. It's going to be hard to top them. But yeah, that being said, there's definitely going to be some teams at the top of the Western Conference that are going to be capable of knocking the Thunder off and becoming champions themselves. All right, so that being said, we're going to do division by division, just like we did with the East, and then we're going to go with the recap, right? So starting with the Northwest Division, pretty clear choice to me. It's going to be the OKC Thunder. Obviously, they're bringing the MVP back, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Mr. Steady Eddie himself. Obviously, the same starting five, along with him, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and Isaiah Hartenstein, along with that deep bench. And they just added a couple more draft picks along with that this year. So they just got resources aplenty over there in Oklahoma City. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. So they're number one. They win the division. The Nuggets are pretty solid number 2. I love the move they had with Cam Johnson replacing Michael Porter Jr. with him. I think he's a better fit for what the Nuggets are trying to do. He's not as shot happy as Michael Porter Jr. He doesn't score as much, but I think he fits what they do better. Better three-point shooter, more efficient shooter, and better defender. That's exactly what they need. So to go along with Jamal Murray, and of course, Nikola Jokic is going to be ridiculous as always. The Nuggets are going to be a solid number 2. Minnesota is going to be a solid number 3. Obviously, we love Anthony Edwards, his style, his swagger. He just keeps getting better as a player. He's worked hard this offseason, so I expect that to continue. And Minnesota is going to be one of the top teams there. They're one of those teams that's getting better, but I think they may run into a problem in that being that the Western Conference is just a lot better in general. And then 4 and 5, pretty easy for me. Portland and Utah, I don't see either team really making a move towards the playoffs like that. They just have too many young pieces and not pieces that are ready to contend for a playoff spot, much less a championship. All right, now moving on to the Southwest Division. This one's going to be a little harder to predict. I have the Houston Rockets just barely edging out the Dallas Mavericks to win the Southwest Division. Obviously, they had the biggest acquisition of the offseason, in my opinion, and adding, of course, the one and only Kevin Durant to a Rockets team that won 52 games last year, but obviously ran into some problems in the first round with Golden State. You kind of saw the youth take over against the experienced Golden State squad. That's not going to be as much of a problem this year when you got a weapon like KD in your front line. And you add that with Amen Thompson, who I think is going to be an all-star, maybe as soon as this year. And then you got Sengun, who's already an all-star. I think he's like 21, 22 years old. That's a great fit for that Rockets team. They had to move around a couple pieces on their bench. They had a lot of young assets. Some of them are getting a lot of playing time. So they made a couple trades to make some things happen and kind of reduce it a little bit. So I like the moves that they made. And of course, I like the coach as well. Really good, especially on defense. You know, get that team tuned in on defense because offensively they're going to be fine. So I got the Rockets at 1. And I think Dallas is going to be right behind them at 2. This, other than Oklahoma City, might be the deepest team in the league. I look at their bench and I'm like, wow, this could be a starting lineup for some teams. Biggest thing with the Mavs, though, is Kyrie's going to be hurt. He's not coming back, I don't think, till around the end of the season with recovering from the ACL ACL tear rather, and so that's probably gonna be a hit for them. But they got D'Angelo Russell, who's a capable backup, if anything else. And then, they got Anthony Davis. Obviously, they got the #1 overall pick, Cooper Flagg, who I'm very excited to see this season. And they just got a ton of depth, as always, especially in the front line. So I got Dallas at 2. And then the #3, I got my breakout team in the Western Conference, that being the San Antonio Spurs, with Victor Wembanyama entering his 3rd season. Wemby, we know, hitting the off season, he hit it hard. He's on some Buddhist monk type stuff. He shaved his head bald. He's working out with Kevin Garnett. He's working out with Akeem Olajuwon. And in preseason, we're seeing that kind of pay off as he's having more Akeem-like moves in the post. He could be in for an MVP type season. That's going to be scary for the league. And then you add that with all the top draft picks they had. They had the #2 overall draft pick last year. They had the Rookie of the Year from last year and the year before. De'Aaron Fox is there. They're loading up pretty quick in San Antonio. It's obvious they're following that OKC formula of building a team. And it looks like it may work and may pay off. I think it should pay off as soon as this year. It's got to start this year for them. And then I look at 4. I think New Orleans will bring up. Well, actually, I think Memphis will bring up the #4 seed, and then New Orleans will be a 5. But both teams will be in contention for a playoff spot. I love what New Orleans has done with Zion. He seems to be taking his weight seriously finally, and it looks like he's paid off in the preseason. He's obviously lighter, and he's playing like he is. He's lighter on his feet. I do like some of their other stars that they have, but I'm not sure about their bench. I'm not that sure about Memphis's bench either, but they do have John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. They did lose Desmond Bane, though. I think that's going to be a big hit for the Grizzlies. And then in 5, we got the Pacific Division. And I think this one personally is going to be the hardest one to call. You got 3 teams that are a bit older that are at the top, and the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Lakers. That's going to make up somewhat of the top 3. If I had to choose right now, I probably would say the Warriors will win #1. I'll give them the slight edge. Seeing as how they did the best in the playoffs last year, I'll just give them that just based off of that. And of course, you got Steph, you got Draymond, you got Buddy Hield. Now you got Jimmy Butler for a full season, so we'll see how that meshes for a full season with the Warriors. And then I'll say the Lakers. I'll say the Lakers are 2. I know I'm going back and forth. Like I said, it's a 3-way tie between those teams, but I would take the Lakers at 2. It's gonna hurt that LeBron's gonna miss pretty much the first month of the season. But they got Luka there. So we'll see how the rest of the team meshes with Luka, and then we'll have to see how they all mesh once LeBron does come back from his sciatic nerve. And then at 3, I got the Clippers. I'll give the Lakers the edge just because the Clippers, I like their top end talent a little bit better. But man, that's an old team. They're the oldest team in the league. I think their average age is 34 years old, just about. That's really, really old. And with teams like that, you have to wonder if health's going to play a factor. If they're all healthy, yes, they can beat anybody. But when you have players, Chris Paul, I think this is going to be his last season. James Harden's missed a little bit more time in these regular seasons. Bradley Beal's been in and out with Phoenix. They got him from Phoenix. And of course, we all know Kawhi, the load management stuff. You just don't know day to day if he's going to be there to play. If they're there to play, I love the starting lineup. But again, it's that health factor. 4, I like Sacramento. They're kind of in the same boat as the Clippers. They're up there in age. I don't know exactly what their average age is, but I imagine they're one of the older teams. Obviously, they just added Russell Westbrook. I don't know if he's going to start or Dennis Schroeder is going to start. But I actually like their starting lineup as well. I'm just not that sure about their bench. But they will be in contention for a playoff spot for sure. And then I got the Suns at 5. I think with losing Kevin Durant, I don't think they got enough to replace him to be able to contend for anything this year, even though Devin Booker is going to be Devin Booker and he's going to score. All right, so for my Western Conference recap, for the East, it's like who's going to make the playoffs. For the West, you have to wonder who's going to miss the playoffs. I think it's harder to predict that than it is to who's going to make it, because there's about 12, 13, 14 teams that I really realistically can see making the postseason. All right, so then we flip it over to who's going to be the 3 and the 8 seeds. So in some particular order, again, I got the Warriors, you got the Mavericks, you got the Nuggets, you got the T-Wolves, you got the Lakers, and then you got the Clippers. And then for the 9 and 10 spots, I'm going to go with the San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings to get those 2 last play-in spots. Now, guys, with that being said, listen, it's not a season prediction video if you're not going to predict who's going to make the finals and win the finals, or make the championship round and win the championship round. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, if you thought different. All right, so with that being said, the Eastern Conference Finals, I got the Cavs and the Knicks. I'm going to go with the Cavs slightly over the Knicks. I think a lot of people will go the other way, but I like how they're constructed a bit better on both sides of the ball. And obviously with the coaching change, by the postseason, it shouldn't matter. They should be used to Mike Brown, but I just think that continuity is there a little bit more with Cleveland than it is with New York. I think obviously New York's a big market team. They're going to be the more popular choice, but I'm taking the Cavs to make the Eastern Conference, to make the NBA Finals. Now, how's the West going to be won, you ask? Me personally, I like the OKC Thunder to go back to the NBA Finals, and I have them beating the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. Like I said, Dallas is going to be the deepest team in the league, and usually with deep veteran teams and very talented teams, when they make the postseason, they can go on these long runs, and anything can happen with them. So I have them just barely over the Denver Nuggets and the Houston Rockets, but like I said, it's the West. I can see about 6 or 7 teams making the conference finals, but I got OKC winning it. Okay, so with that, obviously my finals prediction would be the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder, the 2 teams with the best record in the regular season last year and the best team and the 2 best teams, in my opinion, based on this video, this year. And of course, winning it, I think OKC is going to repeat. I just think they're a team that's built to be the next dynasty in the National Basketball Association. I just think with SGA and with Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and the crew, you're looking at the next dynasty in the league. I think he wins Finals MVP, and they go back to back. So, and also one more thing before I get on out of here, I'll throw in my MVP pick for this season. First, I'll go with my dark horses. So my dark horses, I'll have Cade Cunningham, I'll have Victor Wembanyama, and I'll have Paolo Banchero of the Magic. But winning it, listen, you know the media doesn't like to give these back-to-back awards for some reason, but I think Shai's going to be undeniable. And I think he's going to end up winning it, probably over Jokic again, to get his 2nd straight MVP award. But if he gets it this year, don't look for him to get it next year. That's kind of how these things roll. So with that, guys, that is Cool Hand Steve's 2025-2026 NBA season preview. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for watching. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe as always. Let me know what you think, what your predictions are for this season. And until next time, wild out.